Ladies and gentlemen, YouTubers, welcome to another session of JoJo's GGs. So in this video, I will be doing a comparison between Tier 8 Greek spears, that's the premium units, and their free counterparts, also known as a Sacred Band. Now the goal of this test is to play out many different scenarios while minimizing the amount of variables for the most accurate comparison possible between these two units. This is why I will not be including the ability Hoplite Phalanx in this comparison video, as there are simply just way too many variables to consider when using Phalanx. However, I do have an idea on how this could work. I just need to iron out the kinks, so maybe it's one for a future video. I will also try my utmost to remain objective and unbiased with my analysis. The goal here is to provide you, the viewer, with the facts so that you can make up your own mind about these two units. And I will also refrain from sharing my own opinion until the very end of this video. With all that in mind, let's jump right in. So Sacred Band are the free Tier 8 Greek spear units, usually played with Miltiades as the commander. And what I mean by free is you can level up to this unit simply by playing Arena through your in-game XP and silver rewards, without having to spend any real money. The Myrmidons are their Tier 8 counterparts, same faction, same tier, same unit type. However, they can only be purchased by spending gold. That's Arena's in-game currency that you can buy with real money. So the first thing we will do is analyze these units' statistics. So here's an image of both units and their stats. So feel free to pause the video if you want to compare the stats, or you can listen to me talking through them. So what they have in common, both make use of the same commander abilities, whichever commander you take. So you won't lose abilities from taking a different commander between these two units. Also, both are considered the same unit type, that's spear infantry, meaning they can both use Hoplite Phalanx and make use of strike abilities either in or out of Hoplite Phalanx. Both units also have the bonus versus cavalry. Even though it doesn't specifically say so for the Myrmidons, they do have that statistics that was confirmed by CA. As the image on your screen provides all the information comparing the two units, I will only say what I believe to be the main differences you will notice immediately when playing these two units. So really, what sets them apart is the Myrmidons are faster. That's a fact. Having increased movement speed, they just generally are faster. Now, the Myrmidons generally also have better statistics in terms of aggression, defense, survivability, and mobility stats. So even though the differences are pretty small, overall the Myrmidons do have better stats. Sacred Band, when I've double-checked these statistics, Sacred Band do trade a little bit with the Myrmidons, and some of them are even equal, but generally they will have better statistics, as you can see on your screen anyways. The next image you'll see is of abilities and consumables. Now the Myrmidons' abilities are found on the left side of this image, and Sacred Band are found on the right side. You can see right away that both have the same list of consumables at their disposal, but that is where the similarities end. Both units have the strike ability, but these strikes offer different statistics boosts, where the Myrmidons have Spear of Ares, the Sacred Band have Heavy Thrust. Myrmidons also have the Ray Shields unit ability, whereas the Sacred Band have Aeolia's Vow. So, now that I've explained the statistics, let's jump straight into our first video. Please also note that for the purposes of this test, the Sacred Band will always be fully upgraded Tier 8 units. So in Test 1, we are comparing Sacred Band, that's me, against Myrmidons, my buddy Hicks Hux. So this is a baseline test, purely comparing the two units with no external influences other than unit formations. So there's no consumables, no strikes, no abilities, and break ranks is off. A simple right-click attack order is given, and the units are separated into 3 different formation types. The units on your right, closest to the river, we'll call them Units 3. Both have the standard unit width you are given at the start of the game. The units in the middle, Units 2, my Sacred Band have the standard width, whereas Hicks's Myrmidons are spread out to the thinnest line possible. The units on the left, closest to the cliff, that's Units 1, are both commander units, and this time I have the Sacred Band spread out to the thinnest line possible, and Hixie's Myrmidons are the ones remaining in standard unit width. So let's fast forward this engagement, as this is going to take a while. However, I would like to point out that you can slowly start to see the differences a simple formation change brings between the standard formations on the right, Units 3, Myrmidons with a longer formation in the middle, Units 2, and the Sacred Band with the longer formation on the left, Units 1. Remember this, Units 3, standard formations, Units 2, longer formation to the Myrmidons, and Units 1, longer formation to the Sacred Band. So as we're watching the video play out, I'm going to bring up the results on your screen now. Myrmidons did win all 3 engagements. However, Units 3, Myrmidons had 22% health left. Units 2, Myrmidons had 20.5% health left. And Units 1, Myrmidons had 13.2% health left. So what you may notice immediately is the baseline engagement, Units 3, the Myrmidons had 22% health left, but in Units 2, where they had the thinner line, they only have 20.5% health left. But they do have 47 unit models left over. That's the difference. They actually have 3 more men on the battlefield, even though they have a little bit less health. So they are at an advantage. A small one, but advantage nevertheless. Units 1, on the other hand, where the Sacred Band were the ones with the longer formation, Myrmidons only had 13.2% health left and 24 unit models left over. So what that basically means is if you have a longer formation than your enemy, you will be able to kill more men or do more health damage, either one of those, which is quite an interesting test. I thought I'd share with you guys. Now, moving on to test 2, we have break ranks on with consumables for both sides, and the consumables chosen are double rations plus Olympic trials. These are standard consumables for these types of units. So each will take turns using strike, and the other one will not. This is to represent a situation where you might be busy on the other side of the map and simply forget to use any strikes on that particular type of unit, or maybe you're silenced by Vici, or simply just don't use them very often because you don't have the kind of micro skills to strike on all your units. So, bringing up the results on your screen, Units 3, where only the Myrmidons use strikes, the Myrmidons won with 44.4% health left. On Units 2, where only the Sacred Band uses strikes, unsurprisingly the Sacred Band did win this time with 20.8% health left. This is perfectly normal because when one unit uses strikes and the other one does not, you're almost pretty much guaranteed to win the engagement. So do use those strikes, commanders. They make the difference between you winning or losing an engagement. Now in Units 1, neither units use strike, but remember this is where break ranks on and both having consumables. And this time the Myrmidons won with 15.3% health left. Moving on to test 3, with break ranks on and the same consumables as test 2, this time we test with units 3 and 2 within range of each other's Aeolus vow. This is to test a more realistic scenario where you would cycle Sacred Band's Aeolus vow ability between 2 units, as the duration is 15 seconds with a cooldown of 30 seconds. So this is perfect to sync 2 Aeolus vow together before the cooldown would start again, so you could continuously cycle these 2 abilities between 2 units. And nobody spreads all 3 of their spears. Usually they're clumped together either in pairs or all 3 of them, so it's a little bit more realistic scenario. So what you can see is Units 3 on the right, between this Sacred Band unit and the Myrmidons unit that he is fighting. The Sacred Band is the only unit that's using strikes, but he's also benefiting from a second Aeolus vow from his buddy. That would be Units 2, the one on your left, right next to him. For Units 2, both cycle strike, with the Sacred Band starting first, but with an initial 2-second delay before the Myrmidons do their first strike. Now, the reason why we did this was to avoid any strikes being cancelled by being applied in the same time due to the knockback effects of strike abilities. This test also includes the overlapping of Aeolus Vow with 2 units from the first unit, that would be Units 3. Moving on to the last engagement from this test, Test 3, Units 1. This time both units will be using strike abilities. Sacred Band is still starting first. However, they will only be able to use 1 Aeolus Vow, rather than be buffed by a second unit. So while all 3 engagements play out, we'll bring up the results on your screen. So Units 3, Sacred Band win, but with 43.5% health left. For Units 2, the Myrmidons win this round with 4.1% health left. And for the third and final round, that would be Units 1, where only 1 Aeolus Vow was used, the Myrmidons win with 15.6% health left. Now for Test 4, Charging. So both units are still the same as last test, with fully upgraded Sacred Band, break ranks on, and standard identical consumables. Just a small note I wanted to add, considering how close the charge impact and charge deflect is between these 2 units, our goal for this test was to see if charging first will always win you the charge. We will then compare the damage dealt by the winners of each charge and not take into account any other damage dealt after the initial charge, as both units suffered pull-through damage when pulling out of the fight right after the charge damage was being dealt, with a few eager soldiers chipping away at each other with a few sword swipes as well. So for the purposes of this test, we will only compare the charge damage that has been dealt. So bringing the results on your screen now, Units 3, Sacred Band charge first and win the charge. Myrmidons lose the charge with 86.2% health left. For Units 2, Myrmidons charge first and win the charge, and Sacred Band lose the charge with 77.1% health left. For the next engagement, we tried to create a simultaneous charge, with me as the Sacred Band counting down from 3. However, as you will realize, timing a charge perfectly over an internet call using Discord is near impossible. As you can see, the Sacred Band end up charging a split second earlier than the Myrmidons. I believe this is because the few 100 millisecond delay or latency when giving a countdown over a Discord call, this results in my actions being immediate and Hixie's, with the Myrmidons, being ever so slightly delayed. So for this engagement, Units 1, simultaneous charge, Sacred Band winning because technically he charged first. This is where things get a little interesting. Although Sacred Band won the charge, they still took a bit of damage from the Myrmidons, 41 health damage to be precise. Meanwhile, the Myrmidons took 3070 damage from losing that charge. So the end result, as you can see on your screen, is the Sacred Band win with 99.85% health left, and the Myrmidons lose with 89.02% health left. Moving on to Test 5. Now we start getting to the good stuff. So both units, Units 3 and Units 2, still have the same setup, fully upgraded Sacred Band, break ranks on, with standard, identical consumables, with the exception of Units 1, the last test of Test 5, the last scenario, where we're going to try something a little bit different. So, starting with Units 3 and Units 2, they are set up as mirrored scenarios. So for Units 3, the advantage is given to the Sacred Band with winning the charge and getting the first strike. For Units 2, the advantage is given to the Myrmidons with winning the charge and getting the first strike. And then, both will spam their strike abilities. That includes Sacred Band using Aeolus Vow. And to avoid strikes being cancelled out again, we will stick to our previous strike cycling method, where one strikes first and the other waits 2 seconds before they strike. Then both units spam the strike hotkey to cycle them perfectly together, as both units' strikes cooldowns are identical, 30 seconds. And both will continue to use their strikes until one of them is dead. So bringing the results on your screen now, you can see that Units 3, Sacred Band charge first, win the charge outright and deal 3,823 health damage. Both units use all abilities and cycle strike. Sacred Band win with 9.7% health left. Units 2, Myrmidons charge first, win the charge and deal 4,719 health damage, with both units using all abilities and cycle strike. And the Myrmidons win with 31% health left. But you may have noticed that the Myrmidons took 697 health damage on that charge. On a side note, when Myrmidons won the charge outright from Test 4, Units 1, they dealt 6,377 health damage. So the Sacred Band are 1,658 health better off than if the Myrmidons would have won outright. This is a minor change in the variables, but it won't change the results of the fight by much, maybe a few percentage points. For Units 1, we try another simultaneous charge, but with Sacred Band having break ranks off, only for the charge. The reason for this is because this will give Sacred Band a tighter formation, and because break ranks has a charge deflect penalty of minus 35%, it was worth doing this test to see what will happen. Now what you will notice is that both units take almost equal damage, as opposed to one unit dealing 100% of the damage to the other. Even though I did notice the Myrmidons charging a fraction of a second before the Sacred Band. And here is an image, a little slideshow of a few images where you can see the Myrmidons hitting that charge first because the ability pops up, and then the charge button being pressed by myself on the Sacred Band. The results of this test are interesting to say the least. Both units took damage. So Sacred Band have 91.7% health left and dealt 1,496 health damage, and Myrmidons have 94.6% health left and dealt 2,324 health damage. This is the only damage dealt from the charge. This means that the Myrmidons dealt 55.3% more damage than the Sacred Band, who dealt about 2/3 of the damage compared with the Myrmidons. So continuing the fight, with Sacred Band having break ranks back on immediately after the charge ended, and Sacred Band striking first, along with Aeolus Vow being used, Myrmidons waiting 2 seconds before they strike, and then both units cycle striking until one has been eliminated. And another thing I'd like to point out is seeing both units receiving damage under these circumstances makes me want to go even in more depth into the subtle charge differences between these two units. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to stay focused on the complete overview and comparison between these two units. So the end result being Myrmidons win with 8.9% health left. So now that we've run through all the tests, here are a few things I've managed to pick up when comparing the various tests between themselves. This is when scenarios were similar and only one or two variables have changed between them. So to recap, in Test 1, we first engaged without break ranks and no consumables, using only unit formations, and Myrmidons won all 3 engagements. However, the Sacred Band and Myrmidons each had a slight advantage whenever they were in a longer formation than their counterparts, when compared to the control test. Next, in Test 2, we had break ranks on with identical consumables for both sides, but in standard formations. So when we compare Units 3 from Test 1, break ranks off, no consumables, versus Units 1 from Test 2, break ranks on with consumables for both sides, we can see that the Myrmidons win both engagements, but the fight where both had break ranks and consumables, the Myrmidons won with less health and unit models overall. Next, we will look at the charge tests, and I will say it right away. Whoever charges first will win the charge. There is also the argument for countercharging Myrmidons with your Sacred Band, but with break ranks off. But further testing is required to be 100% sure that you can come out on top on this. Then there are other factors to consider, like phalanx. And it's unfortunate that many spears have trained themselves to react to a charge by going into phalanx. For that, I thank Germanicus and all cavalry. The reason I say this is I would have really liked to see a system in place where two spears charge each other, and it's all about timing your charge milliseconds before he does. Do it too early and he can turn and charge run away. Do it too late and he will charge before you and win the engagement. So it would have been really fun, but there you go. So what does all this mean? Well, for one, the Myrmidons are stronger than fully upgraded Sacred Band. But honestly, anyone with half a brain and 5 minutes of checking their stats in-game would have come to the same conclusion. The key question this video was trying to answer is, by how much? And the answer to that question is 10%. To clarify, Myrmidons are stronger by about 8 to 11% versus the Sacred Band in a straight-up fight if you consider two players having identical skill levels. Meaning, if you win the initial charge, or wait until they lose about 10% of their health by some other means, like taking a few archer volleys, you should be able to beat them up front. And that brings me on to my next point, their increased speed and raised shields abilities. Adding those abilities to the 10% advantage Myrmidons have over their free counterparts, and now you end up having a unit that is overall faster, stronger, can survive longer under sustained missile fire, with a cool strike animation. These are the facts. Now for my opinion on the matter. And please feel free to turn the video off now if all you wanted was the facts. Now what I think is that a 10% advantage in pure melee combat is low enough that a competing player's skills can actually overcome this. Especially with the randomness a 10v10 battle presents with each player with. Now that advantage is also diluted by the fact you're only 1/10 of an army and maybe about 1/5 of all infantry in your team on the battlefield. Then there are other things like they are faster, sure, but if you use that speed advantage to overextend and end up in the wrong part of the map, you may find yourself running faster to your death. Now the raised shields are really what I think makes the Myrmidons special. It simply opens up so many more possibilities and tactical decisions with this ability. And finally, the animation they do is awesome, but this is purely subjective. So to conclude, I honestly prefer that we never had premium units that were stronger than their free counterparts. And a little part of me died when they first announced premium units that would be a little stronger, but not OP. But if it's with perks like raised shields and a difference of only 10%, then I only pray that it never becomes more than this. Because that may be the day that Arena goes from being a game that I play to a game that I used to play. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.